Good afternoon. Today I am going to explain about the topic called profits in lieu of salary. This particular topic is covered under income tax subject, and the profits in lieu of salary topic itself covered under income from salary computation. To calculate the income from salary of a employee, the income from salary computation has divided into four parts. The first part is called salary, then the second part is called allowances, then the third part is perquisites, and the fourth part is profits in lieu of salary. In the previous classes I explained about the salary, which items were included under salary, and in the and which allowances are notified by the income tax department, and what are the perquisites are given to employees by his employer. Today, in today's class, I am going to explain about the profits in lieu of salary. This particular topic is covered as per section 17 subsection 3 of Income Tax Act 1961. 1961. Myself E. Rajkumar, Assistant Professor of Commerce. As per section 17.3 gives an inclusive definition of profits in lieu of salary. As the name suggests, these payments are received by the employee in lieu of or in addition to the salary or wage. In addition to salary or wage is nothing but any payment was made by the employer other than salary and wage, allowance and perquisite, that is to be treated under profits in lieu of salary. In lieu is nothing but in addition to. In lieu is nothing but in addition to. The payments are like this. The first payment is terminal compensation. The first payment is terminal compensation. That means terminal compensation is nothing but any amount of compensation received by an employee from his employer or from former employer in connection with the termination of employment or modification of terms and conditions of employment is regarded as profits in lieu of salary. Nothing but any employee has been terminated from his position or modified of his position or modified in terms and conditions of employment. In this situation, the employee has received any compensation from his employer, that is to be considered under profits in lieu of salary part. An example of terminal compensation could be the amount paid on retirement or premature termination or resignation of the employee or any other circumstances. These are the situations. In this situation, the employee has a choice to receive a compensation from his employer, that is to be treated under profits in lieu of salary part while calculating the income from salary of a employee. And the second one is payment from an unrecognized provident fund or an unrecognized superannuation fund. As per our Income Tax Act, the employee has a choice to the employee has a choice to invest money or deposit money in different types of provident funds. Basically, the provident funds are three types. The first one is statutory provident fund and recognized provident fund and unrecognized provident fund, and fourth one also is there, that is public provident fund. Public provident fund. Here statutory provident fund is nothing but which is statutory decided by the Provident Act. As per Provident Act, is compulsion deduction by the employer from employee's salary. And the second one is recognized provident fund. The recognized provident fund is on interest of the employee. He can invest or he can deposit money in that recognized provident fund. In that situation, the employer also deposits some money according to the norms of the employer. And the third one is unrecognized provident fund. Here itself it is clearly saying that the particular fund is unrecognized by the Income Tax Act. Unrecognized by Income Tax Act or Provident rules. In this situation, any payment due or received by an employee from an unrecognized provident fund or unrecognized superannuation fund, to the extent to which such payment does not consist of contributions by the employee or interest on such employee's contribution or profits in lieu of salary, is nothing but any employee's contribution and any amount as getting interest on that particular employee's contribution in that particular unrecognized provident fund. These both should not be considered while calculating the profits in lieu of salary. The accumulated balance of an unrecognized provident fund or unrecognized superannuation fund consists of the employee's contribution plus interest thereon and the employer's contribution plus interest thereon. The accumulated balance consisting employee contribution and employer contribution. At the same time, interest on employee's contribution and interest on employer's contribution, that is completely called as accumulated balance. That is called as accumulated balance. In this accumulated balance, employer contribution and interest thereon and interest on the employee's contribution are not taxed during the period of employment. These three should be taxable at the time of retirement only, or at the time of termination. At the time of termination only. Here once again, fund to the extent to which such payment does not consist of contribution by the employee or interest and employee's contribution. While calculating the unrecognized superannuation fund under profits in lieu of salary, only just consider employer's contribution and employer's contribution only. Hence, when the accumulated balance of such a fund is paid to the employee either on retirement or on termination of service, the untaxed portion is taxed as profits in lieu of salary. Profits in lieu of salary. The interest component available as part of employee's contribution would be taxed as income from other sources. The interest component available as part of the employee's contribution would be taxed as part of income from other sources. The employer contribution is taxed as per profits in lieu of salary. And the next one is payment under Keyman insurance policy. Keyman insurance policy. Any payment due to or received by an employee under Keyman insurance policy, including the sum allocated by way of bonus on such policy, will also be regarded as profits in lieu of salary. That's nothing but if an employee receiving any bonus on that particular Keyman insurance policy, that bonus is to be taxable as per income tax rules under profits in lieu of salary, under profits in lieu of salary. And the next one is any amount due or received before joining or after cessation of employment. Any amount received or due before joining or after cessation of employment. There is nothing but any amount due to or received, whether in lump sum or otherwise, by any assessee from any person Here two types of situations are there. The first one is before he is joining any employment with that person, and the second situation is after cessation of his employment with that person. It's nothing but any amount received from his employer other than superannuation fund or other than any final settlement. The last one is any other sum received by the employee from the employer. Except these four situations, and also the employee has received any amount from his employer, that is to be treated under profits in lieu of salaries. Nothing but in simple way, any amount which is not belongs to salary part or any not belongs to allowances part or not belongs to perquisite part, that should be taken under profits in lieu of salary part, that is to be taken under profits in lieu of salary part. The following payment should not be considered under profits in lieu of salary. This is very, very important. The following payment should not be considered under profits in lieu of salary part. The following payments received by an employee will not be termed as profits in lieu of salary to the extent they are exempt as per section 10 of Income Tax Act. The payments are death cum retirement gratuity, death cum retirement gratuity. Then the next one is commuted value of pension. Then the next one is leave encashment on the eve of retirement. Then the fourth one is retrenchment compensation received by a workman. Then the last one is payment received from a statutory provident fund or recognized provident fund. Just observing the fifth part, payment received from a statutory provident fund or recognized provident fund is clearly mentioning that a particular one is not included under profits in lieu of salary head. But here he is not mentioning about the unrecognized provident fund. Why? Because any amount, any employer contribution in unrecognized provident fund, that is to be treated under profits in lieu of salary. Before going to the next topic, just listen once again. Any terminal compensation received from the employer by employee, that is to be considered under profits in lieu of salary, and any amount or any payment from an unrecognized provident fund or from an unrecognized superannuation fund, that also be considered under profits in lieu of salary part. And the next one is any payment received or any bonus received from the Keyman insurance policy, that is also considered under profits in lieu of salary part. And the next one is any amount due or received before joining or after cessation of employment from his employer. And the last one is any other, except these four situations, any other amount is received from the employer from his from received by the employee from his employer, that is to be treated under profits in lieu of salary. But while calculating while considering the any income under profits in lieu of salary, just observe the particular items were notified by the Income Tax Act that should not be considered under profits in lieu of salary while calculating the income from salary. The items are death cum retirement gratuity and commuted value of pension and leave encashment on the eve of retirement. And the fourth one is retrenchment compensation received by a workman. And the last one is payment received from a statutory provident fund or recognized provident fund. Recognized provident fund. Next we will discuss about the retirement benefits. We discuss about the retirement benefits. Retirement benefits nothing but at the time of retirement, the retirement may be superannuation or voluntary retirement. At that time the employee has some retirement benefits. Those are exempted up to some extent. Beyond that, the assessee or the employee has to pay the income tax to the income tax department. Here I will I want to explain some retirement benefits. They are, the first one is death cum retirement gratuity. Death cum retirement gratuity. First of all, the gratuity is nothing but gratuity is a payment made by the employer to an employee in appreciation of the past services rendered by the employee. As per Income Tax Act, the gratuity is nothing but gratuity is a payment made by the employer to an employee in appreciation of the past services. In appreciation of the past services rendered by the employee. This is an payment which is given by the employer to employee on appreciation of the past services of the employee. The gratuity can be either received by the employee in two ways. The first one is the employee himself at the time of his retirement, or the legal heir on the event of death of the employee. The gratuity may be received by the person in two ways. The first one is the employee himself receives the gratuity at the time of retirement, and the second one is the legal heir of the employee receives the gratuity on the eve of death of the employee. The gratuity received by an employee on his retirement is taxable under the head salary, whereas gratuity received by the legal heir of the deceased employee shall be taxable under the head income from other sources. Is nothing but any employee receives his gratuity at the time of retirement, that is considered under the head called income from salary. But any gratuity received by his family members or his legal heir that is to be considered under income from other sources of that respective person. Income from other sources of that received person's income calculation. However, in both the above cases, according to section 10 subsection 10, gratuity is exempt up to certain limit. Therefore, in case gratuity is received by employees, salary would include only that part of the gratuity which is not exempt under section 10 subsection 10 as discussed below. For tax computation purpose, the employees have been divided into three parts as for gratuity calculation. The first one is government employees and government of local authorities, employees of local authorities, and the second one is employees covered under Gratuity Act, and the third one is employees not covered under Gratuity Act. For tax computation purpose, the employees were divided into three types. The first one is government employees and employees of local authorities, and the second one is employees they covered under Gratuity Act, and the third employees are employees not covered under Gratuity Act. For these three persons, the gratuity calculation has followed some different procedures. The first, government employees, how much amount received by the government employees in the form of gratuity that is completely exempted. In the form of gratuity that is completely exempted. How much amount received in the form of gratuity that is completely exempted on the issue of in the issue of government employees or employees of local authorities. The second one is employees covered under Gratuity Act. Any employees covered under Gratuity Act. Here we have to calculate some exemption amount and taxable amount. The exemption is list of the following three. The exemption is list of the following three. The three conditions are: the first condition is actual gratuity received, and the second condition is 15 days salary. 15 days salary for every completed year or part thereof exceeding 6 months. And the third condition is 20 lakhs. The third condition is 20 lakhs. The first one is actual gratuity received. That means how much gratuity the person has received at the time of his retirement or at the time of his death, that is received from his employer. The second one is 15 days salary. 15 days salary for every completed year. 15 days salary for every completed year or part thereof exceeding 6 months. That's nothing but 15 days salary into completed years of service. 15 days salary into completed years of salary. Completed years of salary, while computing the completed years of salary, for example, in that particular year, he has done his service for more than 6 months. We have to consider that is to be as 1 year. That is to be as 1 year. He served for less than 6 months. We did not consider that particular period as 1 year. For example, the assessee has given service for a period of 29 years 7 months. 29 years 7 months. While calculating the gratuity, we have to consider 30 years. We have to consider 30 years. Otherwise, the employee has given service of 29 years 5 months. 29 years 5 months or 6 months. In that situation, while calculating the gratuity, we have to consider only 29 years. Why? Because he has not completed 6 months of service. 6 months of service. Here the meaning of salary: basic salary plus dearness allowance. Salary is nothing but basic salary plus dearness allowance. And the second one is last drawn salary. Last drawn salary. Average salary for preceding 3 months in case of piece rate employees. Piece rate employees. And third one is number of days in a month is to be taken as 26. Number of days salary to be taken as 26 days. While calculating the 15 days salary, we have to consider 15 days divided by 26 into month salary. Into month salary. This is the procedure. The third condition is 20 lakhs, which is decided by the central government. The employee is not covered under Gratuity Act. The employee is not covered under Gratuity Act. Here also to decide how much amount should be exempted and how much amount should be taxable. First, we have to know how much amount is exempted. To know the exempted amount, just follow the conditions. To calculate the exemption amount, we have to observe the conditions. The conditions are minimum of the following 3 limits. The 3 limits are: first one, actual gratuity received. The second one is half month average salary of each completed year of service. Half month average salary of each completed year of service. And the third condition is 10 lakhs. The third condition is 10 lakhs. Here also salary is nothing but basic salary plus DA to the extent of terms of employment. So provide commission if fixed percent of turnover. For example, the DA have retirement benefit or DA has retirement benefit. In that situation only we have to add back the DA, and whether the employee receiving any fixed commission on turnover, we have to add back the turnover also, commission also. Next, the average salary. The average salary is nothing but last 10-month salary of the preceding year. Average salary is nothing but last 10 months preceding the month salary. Preceding month 10 months salary should be taken as average salary. Only completed year of service is to be taken. Only completed year of service to be taken. These are the 3 situations to know the how much amount is exempted from the income tax and how much amount is to be taxable. And the next one is commuted value of pension. The next one is commuted value of pension. The pension is a payment made by the employer after his retirement or death of the employee as a reward for past services. Pension is a payment made by the employer to employee after his retirement or death of the employee as a reward for past service. This is pension. Pension is normally paid as a periodical payment on monthly basis, but certain employers may also allow an employee to forgo a portion of the pension and receive a lump sum amount by surrendering such portion of pension. This is known as commutation of pension. This is called as commutation of pension. Commutation of pension is nothing but receiving a lump sum amount by surrendering his pension. By surrendering his pension is nothing but commutation of pension. The pension may be fully or partly commuted, that is nothing but in lieu of the pension, a lump sum payment is made to the employee. The treatment of these two kinds of pensions is as under: commuted pension and uncommuted pension. Uncommuted pension is nothing but the periodical pension. It is fully taxable in the hands of all employees, whether government or non-government. Government or non-government. For example, X gets monthly pension of 2000. It is taxable as salary under section 15 in the hands of a government as well as non-government employees. And commuted pension. The commuted pension is exempted as per section 10 subsection 10A. We have to calculate how much amount is to be exempted and how much amount is to be taxable. For government employees, status of employment. For government employees and government employees of local authorities and government employees of statutory corporations. Here no need to think about whether the employees are gratuity received or not received. No need to consider. The entire commuted pension is exempt from tax. The complete amount is exempted. The complete amount is exempted in the issue of government employees and employees of local authorities and employees of statutory corporations. The second category is non-government employees. Non-government employees when gratuity received. The second category is non-government employees when gratuity received. In that situation, the exemption is one third of the pension which he is normally entitled to receive is exempt from tax. For example, the person is eligible to receive a pension of 10 lakhs. The person is eligible to receive a pension of 10 lakhs. In that 10 lakhs, 1/3%, nothing but 3,33,333 rupees is exempted from tax. The remaining is taxable. The third category is non-government employees. They are not receiving gratuity. In that situation, half of the pension which he is normally entitled to receive is exempt from tax. The same example, the person is eligible to receive a pension of 10 lakhs. In that 10 lakhs, half of the pension is exempted from tax. 10 lakhs into 1/2, half, that is 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs is exempted from tax. These are the three situations. Any commuted pension received by the government employees or local authority or any public sector or statutory corporation, that is completely exempted. And any employee belongs to non-government employee and they are covered and they are receiving gratuity, one third of the pension is exempted. And the third category, non-government employees, they are not receiving any gratuity. For those people, half of the commuted pension half of the pension is exempted from the tax. The remaining is taxable. And the third one is Third retirement benefit is leave encashment. Leave encashment, which is exempted as per section 10 subsection 10 AA. As per section 10 subsection 10 AA. As per terms of employment, generally an employee is granted certain period of leave on yearly basis. Such leaves may be casual leaves, medical leaves, and privilege leaves or earned leaves. Generally, an employee can accumulate his medical leaves and privilege leaves and can avail such leaves in subsequent years as per his necessity. However, in some cases, an employee can even encash his accumulated privilege or earned leaves and can get salary for the said period of leave. The employee has a choice to accumulate his earned leaves whenever he requires amount. At that time, the employee has a right to encash his earned leaves into cash. Such receipt of salary by an employee from his employer in lieu of his accumulated leaves is called as leave encashment. That procedure is to be called as leave encashment. Leave encashment is nothing but his accumulated earned leaves are converted into cash. This particular procedure is called as leave encashment. Such encashment can be done by an employee either during his service or at the time of leaving the job due to retirement or any other reason. However, in case of death of an employee, the salary for his accumulated leave is given to his legal heirs. The encashment may be in two ways. The first one is in service, and the second category is at the time of retirement or at the time of removal or at the time of resignation or at the time of any other reason. By two ways, the employee can do leave encashment. This is a graph. Tax treatment of leave encashment. The leave encashment during the service, the leave encashment on leaving the job or retirement. The third category is leave encashment after his death. Leave encashment during his service is completely exempted. The leaving encashment during the service is exempted. And the second one, leave encashment on leaving the job or in his retirement. For government employees, that is completely exempted. For non-government employees, the exemption is to be calculated by observing some conditions. And the third one is leave encashment after his death, that is completely exempted irrespective of the employment. In the first situation, leave encashment during the service irrespective of the employment, that nothing but whether he is government employee or non-government employee, that is completely taxable. In the third situation also, leave encashment after his death, whether he is a government employee or whether he is a non-government employee, that is completely exempted from the tax. Just we have to focus on the leave encashment on leaving the job or on retirement. Leave encashment on leaving the job or on his retirement. In this situation only we have to observe whether the employee is a government employee or whether the employee is a non-government employee. Here for government employees, that is how much amount he receives in the form of leave encashment, that is completely exempted. But in the issue of non-government employees, we have to observe the conditions to calculate the exemption amount. First, leave encashment during service, that is taxable irrespective of the employment. Second one is leave encashment on leaving job or retirement. Here for government employees, that is fully exempted. For non-government employees, any payment received as leave encashment at the time of retirement or on leaving job otherwise shall be exempt up to the list of the four conditions. List of the four conditions. The four conditions are leave encashment actually received, that means how much amount he received by converting his earned leaves into cash. The second one is 10 months average salary. And the third one is cash equivalent of unavailed leave, cash equivalent of unavailed leave calculated on the basis of maximum 30 days leave for every year of actual service rendered. Actual service rendered. And the fourth one is rupees 3 lakhs. Rupees 3 lakhs. The maximum ceiling is only 3 lakhs. By observing these four conditions, we calculate the exemption amount. We calculate the exemption amount. While consider calculating the 10 months average salary, the salary is nothing but basic salary plus DA. Basic salary plus DA plus any commission on turnover. Any commission on turnover. The second note is average salary of last 10 months. Nothing but before his retirement 10 months salary. Before his retirement 10 months salary. Here we can observe one example. If an employee retires on December 31st 2013, then the average salary of 10 months will be calculated by taking salary drawn during March 1st 2013 to December 31st 2013. March 1st 2013 to December 31st 2013. Then the third category is leave encashment after death. Leave encashment after death. In case the amount of leave encashment is given to legal heirs of fully deceased employee, it is completely exempted irrespective of the employment, whether the employee is a government or whether the employee is a non-government employee. No need to give any preference. And the fourth one is retrenchment compensation received by a workman. Any retrenchment compensation received by a workman, he has a right to take exemption up to 5 lakhs. Up to 5 lakhs.